All right, good morning. This lesson is for my integrated 1 class. This is lesson 11, and this will be for homework 11. Let me check the camera here real quick. I'm having so many technical difficulties today. You wouldn't even begin to believe. All right, so anyways, let's get back started. Before I get started, I want to say I hope everyone is doing all right out there. If there's anything I can help you with, please reach out. And I do want to say that I am impressed with the 70 or so % of you that are doing the work. That's a very high number of you guys who are doing what I need done. I listen to the other teachers. They're not having the success that I'm having, and I think that's because you guys have been wonderful all year, and we've just carried it over into this quarantine. And so I really do appreciate the effort that you're doing. I really, really do. And it speaks volumes. I mean, it really makes you guys look really well. And I'm so impressed. And that being said, the 30% of you that aren't doing your work, you need to do your work. It's unacceptable that you're not. If there's an issue that I can help you with, please let me know. I'll take late work. Just let me know you turn it in late. I'll give you credit. I want you guys to just do what I'm asking you to do. And I want to help you be prepared for next year. Remember, these are ideas that we're going to need for next year. So if you're not working on them now, you're going to go into the next year and really be a little bit behind, and I don't want that for my students. I want you guys to be in the well prepared for the next class. And I also want to point out that please do all the assignments, because when this is over, I have to look at grades, and we're going to be very flexible with the grades here. And if you're doing everything I'm asking you to do, you're in a really good spot. So please, let's make an effort to do everything I'm asking you to do. And that way, when it comes down to it, we can have a legit chance at us getting credit. So again, just do everything I'm asking you to do. And again, a lot of you are doing what I'm asking, and I'm very, very impressed with that. So again, I keep saying the word again a lot. Let's make sure we're doing what we need to. And if you need any help, if there's any issues that's keeping you from being successful, let me know, and I will help you out the best that I can. All right, so let's get into today's lesson. It's going to be a pretty simple lesson. Let me describe what the goals are, and then we'll get into the lesson here. So anyways, our first goal is going to be an introduction to describing a sequence of rigid transformations, which sounds like a complicated idea, but it's not. You're literally going to tell me how something went from here and got over there. And since it's a sequence, remember, if there's a sequence of events, that means that a first thing happened and then a second thing happened. In today's lesson, you should be able to describe the sequence using 2 rigid transformations. And I'll remind you really quick what the rigid transformations are. They're translation, they're reflection, and they're rotation, though. So using these ideas, we're going to describe how a triangle went from over here and got over there. Our second goal is going to be to define congruence. And congruence in this book is related to a sequence of rigid transformations. So let me talk about this for a little bit, and then I'll start talking about the idea of congruence. The idea of congruence is going to be a big concept for the rest of the school year. So I want to start, introduce the idea slowly and build on that. All right. So let's jump right in and start talking about our first goal, introduction to describing a sequence of rigid transformations. A rigid transformation means that something moves and it doesn't change its shape. It's still the same shape when it's all said and done. And we have 3 rigid transformations that we're going to be working with. Our first rigid transformation is a slide, where we're literally taking a shape and we're just pushing it somewhere else. And I know that this shape moves here because I went from A to A prime. That's my clue that I moved. This is where I ended up. This is where I started. This is where I ended up. And again, notice the shapes are, they're pointed in the same direction. They just got pushed over. Our second rigid transformation is called a reflection. And a reflection is a flipping. And you reflect over something. Excuse me. So my triangle here reflects or flips over the y-axis, so it flips. Now, when you have a reflection, you can kind of tell what you have because it's a mirror image. You know, so this triangle is looking at itself and sees this in the mirror. That would be a way that we see it. It gets a little bit tricky when the line of reflection goes through the shape. That gets to be a little bit hard to imagine yourself looking at a mirror that you're halfway in, and then you see, I don't know how that really works. That's kind of a bad example. Anyways, the next one is a rotation, and a rotation is another rigid transformation where we're literally spinning the shape. So this guy spun and ended up here. So we're going to look at a combination of these, and we're going to describe how something moved from here and got over there. All right. And so when I look at this, I'm going to look at this and try and figure out, did something slide? Did it flip? Did it spin? And so when I figure out that, then I can start to describe my sequence of rigid transformations. Now, again, we're not in the classroom, so I'm not going to teach this lesson in such a way where I expect you guys to have the full concept today. That's not reasonable. But if we can describe, like, hey, this happened and this happened, that's all I need today. So we're going to describe that. All right. So I have an example on the board, and I know that I'm starting here, and I know that I ended up here, and I know that it took 2 moves to get here because it's a double prime. It took me 2 moves. I had to do 2 things to go from here to here. And so as I look at this, I start trying to figure out which of these 3 would be something I would need to use. And so what's standing out to me is the idea of a rotation. I see that this shape had to spin. And so I know that it has to spin in such a way that this side now becomes on the top. I was going to do a dance move. So this has to spin and come down here. So that looks like to me that this is going to be a roughly a 90 degree, negative 90 because we're going in the clockwise direction. So this would be my first move. So my first move would be a negative 90 degree rotation. So that's my first rigid transformation. So I can draw a rough triangle and realize that this is this is where I got to by doing a 90 degree rotation. The next thing I need to think is, do I rotate to go from here to there? Which, no, there's no spinning move. There's no flipping move, so I didn't do a reflection. So my next move is, it looks like I did a translation. And if I would have drawn this better, this would have been a little bit higher, but it's still, you can see that this triangle is a little higher than this one. So my translation is going to be a sliding to the left and a little bit down. So we're going to say that we do a translation to the left and down. All right. So this is what I want you guys to be able to do today. Is I want you to be able to look at a shape, and we know that we started here. We know that we moved here because this again tells me that I moved twice. That it took 2 moves to move. Now, maybe you don't see it the way I saw it, and you decide that you're going to go from here to here in a different way, which is fine. You know, you might say, well, I could move it over here, and then I could rotate. All right, that works. And, you know, like I said, this is just us practicing describing how we move from one location to the other. Okay. So I have 4 problems. It's not much in the way of homework. And again, just try your best on this. This is all I need you to do today. The next goal I want to talk about for a minute is congruence. All right. And let me erase this here real quick. So congruence is a geometry concept. And I'm going to break down the symbol here. Okay. And again, I'm talking about my second goal, congruence. Congruence has a symbol, and this is the symbol for congruence. It's an equal sign with a tilde on top. All right, and let's break this symbol down. The tilde means that we have the same shape. The equal sign means that our shape is the same size. So the idea of congruence literally means it's the same shape and the same size. And the way that this relates to our goal of a sequence of transformations is, if you can take a shape and move it onto another shape exactly, then that shows us that the shapes must be the same shape and they must be the same size. So right now, because this is the introduction to congruence, everything's going to be congruent because we're going to practice the sequence of rigid transformations. As we move a little bit further in this lesson, we're going to start to see, well, maybe they aren't the same shape or the same size. So maybe they're not going to be congruent. Excuse me, but right now everything is going to be congruent, and so let me write this down so I really clarify it. So right now, the definition of congruence, and I'm going to use the shape or the symbol of the definition of congruence because this is how I say congruence without writing it out. The definition of congruence means that there's a sequence of rigid transformations the mathematical definition says there's a sequence of rigid transformations that maps one shape onto another shape. I'm going to rephrase that right now. I'm going to make it a little less mathematical so it's easier for us to understand. So a definition of congruence is a sequence of rigid transformations that where one shape lands perfectly on top of the other shape. I'm going to run out of room here. And I'm trying not to step on Thursday. She's laying on the floor right here. She's bored and she's standing, just laying right in my way. Isn't that right, Thursday? Anyways, so we're going to keep talking about this idea of congruence. And again, this idea of congruence, the way that we show things are the same size and same shape right now. The way that we show this is we're going to start to show that this shape, through a sequence of rigid transformations, lands on top of this shape. So all that we're doing today that's going to help us get started with this goal is we're going to start to just describe how this over here moved to that over there. That's all we're doing, and then we're going to start to go deeper in this concept. So again, I hope everyone is doing all right out there. If there's anything I can do to help you guys, let me know. And again, let's keep doing the work. And so many of you are doing so well. Some of you are checking in for attendance and you're not doing the work. Come on. What else are you going to do? Right? You can only see the same post so many times. And I'm sure people are tired of your quarantine selfies. So please make sure we're doing the work. And let's be as productive and make sure we come out of this on the other side in the best position possible. I will post the next video on Wednesday. Have a good day, everybody.